Typically day.
Okay. And I'll whisper to Wendy, do not let him out of your sight.
You're not going to be able to do that without him hearing it.
Once he's gone.
So you're going to let him leave?
I think so.
Okay.
Well, someone else. Red will let him leave if no one else is stopping him.
And Wendy will listen to Red nod and then kind of head after him, trying to, like, not be staring at him, but be sending wind over in his direction so I can keep an eye on him.
David barged in here, said, "What happened in here?"
I think it was the ghost.
So there's no way that you're going to be able to keep blowing wind at it without him realizing it?
No, I know, but, like, is he going into the hold? Because most places in the ship will be windy.
Yeah, no, he's going down into the below deck.
In that case, I'm just going to try to keep him within earshot. If I need to get eyes on him, I'll do so.
I mean, Adrex has those.
Exactly.
He heads over towards room U back here. Back towards the crew quarters in the back of the ship. Adrex, they done burned down your new bedroom, Hoss.
Alright, well, help me get the sand back in the bucket, and then we'll take care of the lantern, and then...
Did you say the ghost? You think the ghost did this?
Are people still there watching?
It's just the three of you at the moment.
Okay. And then I'll let
Right,
Adrex in on what happened.
Adrex immediately goes to look at the door hinges.
And looking at the hinges, you do indeed see similar markings on the heads of these three pins.
Adrex points that out to Red. I found these in the other quarters that you were locked in before.
Yeah.
Huh.
You mean...
Is that magic or mechanical?
I think it's magic.
Probably. Yeah, so did you notice that guy didn't seem at all surprised by the burnt-out corner of the room?
I caught that too.
Now that you mention
he also
it,
immediately realized where we were when we told him we needed a carpenter. He also immediately knew that we were going to talk to the carpenter when we tried to make our way back to the back of that ship.
Yeah, that guy
Despite
is...
several other people sleeping there. I'll keep an eye on him if he's awake at night, but I asked Wendy to do so during the day. I think she can be kind of, well, stealthy. Eh.
He was acting really cagey, so I don't know.
Also, I feel bad about Wendy being berated by Birdie for that sand bucket lecture. It was actually fairly relevant. And I'll start putting the sand back in the bucket.
I imagine Wendy giving this lecture and Birdie just keeps raising his hand, but she can't see that he's doing it, so he never gets called on. He has so many questions about the bucket.
Raazu will help Red set the quarters to rights.
Okay. What is Adrex doing this evening?
if this evening, if the fucking hammer is awake, Adrex wants to talk to the fucking hammer about the hinges.
Okay. And what about Raazu?
Raazu is going to... I think she's going to continue to observe the crew. She's going to sleep tomorrow off.
Okay, so observe the crew through, like, the shift change and whatnot?
Yeah.
Wendy, after you confirm that Rolf went back into the crew quarters here, what are you doing this evening?
Is he on the day shift or the night shift?
He typically works during the days, but he hasn't yet taken his evening meal.
I'm going to first tell Red where I saw him go, but then I'm going to spend my evening over here searching like I was over here during the day.
Okay.
But also just trying to make sure that he doesn't leave the quarters. If he does, I'm going to follow him.
All right. And what's Red doing this evening?
I was going to work with Runthiel again, like I did the last time before all hell broke loose.
Okay. And the first thing that happens when, I mean, she barely acknowledges that you're there, which is kind of her want.
Yep.
And she opens, and the first thing that happens is she realizes that her hammer is missing.
Mm-hmm. I was missing.
Well, Rolf took it and didn't put it back. The tools that Rolf took out to work on the door, he did not put back in the shop. He went below deck with them. And
I think it was that new guy, Rolf.
Very
He
gruff.
helped us with a door because we didn't want to wake you up. Didn't seem like polite to do it again.
Without looking up, she just says, door.
Yeah, the door to our room had the same sort of problem that the one Adrex bashed through.
She asks if Adrex bashed through this one.
No, that's why
No.
we got the guy to open it.
But we did find something on the hinges. I wanted to ask you about it. Is it Ms. fucking Hammer? Is it just Ms. Hammer? Do you like just the?
She's staring through you.
Okay. Ms. fucking Hammer it is. Okay.
That's polite.
But there's hinges.
Adrex.
Yeah, no. On the door that I broke through and the door that Rolf guy hammered down, there's like a carving of a rune or something on the hinges, and I wanted to ask you about it if you knew anything about it. Red, I don't think she's talking to me.
She takes hold of Adrex's wrist. And she places it firmly on one of her desks. In her workshop. She splays out the fingers. She reaches up on the high part of the wall where she has, looks like a claw hammer. Like a pry bar kind of thing. And with amazing reflexes, she crashes it down to the desk between two of Adrex's fingers. Leaving a huge gash in the wood. Make a constitution check. Let's see if you flinch.
Just to check. Not a saving throw.
No, yeah, I'll call it a constitution save. That's fine.
Okay.
You're saving face if you make it.
That's a 26.
You're just like, I'm not scared of that hammer. She can hit.
No, Adrex is too dumbfounded to be like, I gotta move my hand.
I'm a fucking Dragonborn. She could hit this directly on the hand and it wouldn't matter. She lets go of your wrist afterwards. You pull your hand back, and there is this big gash in the desk. And then she reaches down and places her hands on it. And she closes her eyes, and her mouth moves for a moment. And you don't hear anything audible come out. But as she does this, the hole in the wood, the splinters come back together, and it leaves the desk as seamless as they found it. But you see for a moment a similar marking to what you've seen on those nails. Just for a moment, and then it vanishes away into wherever magical incantations go when they're done.
Disneyland.
And then when
It's
she's
magical
done, she
somewhere.
opens her eyes and she resumes looking through you.
Is the same mark or similar?
Are you asking Adrex?
It
Yeah.
was the same mark, right? Yeah. Or I guess
It did
with
look
Adrex-
slightly different. Make an Arcana check, Adrex.
Damn
Because
it.
it did look slightly different to you.
See what that
Wait,
training
you've
got
been
you.
in Birdie's classes.
9.
9. It's difficult to be sure because this was a much bigger, like a larger area of damage, whereas the hinges on the doors, you just had the head of the pin going through each of the hinges. It could be the same, or it could have been different. It's difficult to say.
And Adrex relays that. Might have been the same, but hard to say.
Runthiel looks over to Red, and she asks, Work?
Yeah.
She says, retrieve my tools.
Gladly.
Then she turns to Adrex. This is door.
Adrex stares through Runthail.
You're not as good at it as she is.
Yeah. But Adrex is doing it in a very confused kind of way.
She clarifies, which door?
Oh, right. Our door, right next door. Come on, I'll show you.
Okay, you show her the door. I mean, it is damaged now because he had to break it to get inside.
And Adrex pointedly points out the hinges.
Okay. Red, where are you going?
Well, Wendy told me where he is, so I'm gonna come down here, but I'm gonna try and sneak in without anyone, just like without waking anybody up or anything.
Okay. Wendy, people have been going in and out of the room because of the shift change, but you've not noticed Rolf emerge. So by the time Red comes downstairs...
and I'll just kind of give him a small nod as I continue searching.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep, just slip in quietly into the room.
Anybody who's awake is going to know that you've slipped in. There's not a stealthy way to do it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
But I don't want to wake anybody up, basically.
And several of the cots are occupied.
Mm-hmm.
And you see the one where Rolf is laying, and he's got his blanket up over him.
I'll move over next to him.
Okay.
And listen, do I think he's sleeping from his breathing?
Make an insight check.
Does he sound like an 18-year-old faking it?
That's 27.
27. No, he is faking being asleep.
He does.
Mm-hmm.
He's pretending to be asleep.
Rolf, where are the tools? Sorry to wake you. And I'll kind of semi-violently shake him.
And he sprawls out from his hammock, and he reaches down on the floor where he's got his boots off, sitting there. And next to it are the tools that he used earlier, and he gathers them up and hands them to you.
Okay. Does he have any other personal effects aside from his boots there?
I mean, if he does, they're on his person.
Okay.
Yeah, the regular crew don't keep like foot lockers in here because these hammocks get used by different people during the day and during the night.
I'll just kind of nod and make my way back up, whisper to Wendy on the way. He was faking being asleep, which seems pretty weird. If he was actually asleep, I would have gone through his stuff, but I didn't want to get a chance while I was awake.
And Wendy says, I'll let you know when he leaves.
And bring the tools back to Romthiel.
Okay, and she gets to work repairing the door, the second one in 2 days. She doesn't seem particularly aggravated by it. It's just, this is her job. She's going about it. And after a few moments, she resets the door. Gets the latch working. Checks it. Opens and closes it.
Opens and closes it, sees the fire.
When she sees the damage in the room, she turns back and gives Red a kind of accusatory glare.
I mean, I think it was... Something weird is going on, some sort of magical thing. Maybe a ghost. I've mostly been telling Wendy it's a ghost because I think then Wendy will help me find it. I'm not sure
this is the second time someone's tried to kill you, though. You specifically.
I've worked with a lot of really poor assassins in my day. This would have to be like the least competent assassin I've ever known, by an order of magnitude.
She says very matter-of-factly, ghosts don't start fires.
Oh, I didn't know that. Well, like I said, I don't actually think it's a ghost. I've just been saying that because I want to make sure Wendy's 100% helping us with this.
She casts a kind of sideward
that,
glance at Adrex.
I suspect that new guy,
Don't
really.
Look at me. I wouldn't assassinate Red.
Red, you
Don't
say
even know
you
what that
suspect
means.
the new guy?
Yeah, I think right now something is definitely up with him.
And she leaves the area and begins heading, going back to my notes here because I didn't label the rooms on the map, because why would I do that? That would make a lot of sense. She starts heading back below deck. And it looks like she's heading towards the area where Rolf is.
This is gonna be good.
Raazu, you're seeing all this back and forth as you're patrolling the top deck.
Adrex gives a quiet glance to Red, and then sneaks behind it. Sneaks behind Rinthale because he wants to see this go down.
Okay. And she opens this door, and she raps gently on room number W here, which is the quartermaster's chambers. And after a few moments, you hear something that sounds kind of like not words from inside, like a as Noakes wakes up, comes to the door with his night clothes on. I like to imagine he wears like one of those old-timey Victorian era nightcaps, like a Scrooge,
Right.
like an Ebenezer Scrooge kind of thing.
Obviously. I don't.
Well, yeah.
Is anyone not picturing that?
And Runthiel doesn't say anything to Noakes. She just turns and looks at you. And Noakes looks angry. What is this about? He's wiping the sleep out of his eyes.
Kind of think that new guy might be doing some of the things that are happening on the ship, or at least know about them.
He asks, what new guy?
Which one was it? The human? Rolf?
He looks down at Runthiel and she just nods once.
Seems to not be quite taken aback enough about weird things happening and sort of already understand what's going on before we tell him.
Noakes cuts you off. He says, what has he done?
The two, at this point, two doors that have been weirdly magicked closed, and a small fire on the upper deck, or in the quarters on the upper deck.
Noakes' eyes get real wide when you say fire. I'm sorry, did I hear you correctly? This man is setting fires?
That's what we suspect. He was again. We asked him because the carpenter was asleep. We asked him to help us fix the door, which had been magic closed. Unlike everyone else, he was not surprised, and I hadn't told him about the fire in the room.
Who all is here right now? Adrex and Red. Has Wendy come forward?
No, Wendy's staying out searching.
Okay.
I think it's
And
just
I can usually read when someone is trying to play down surprise. He definitely was expecting it.
He says, you bear witness against this man?
Sorry, who did he ask? Was that
He's
me
asking
or-
the two of you standing there, Red and
Yep.
Adrex.
Yeah.
Then he looks at Runthiel and she just gives him a very curt nod.
And he took the hammers, the fucking hammer. Like
No, he didn't take
what's-
her the fucking hammer. He took her, like, carpenter's hammer. She has an
Okay.
actual war hammer in that shop.
He only took the fricking hammer.
Right?
Okay. All right. Never mind then. That's good.
He took like Hammer Jr. Like, let's be clear. She could still do a lot of damage with that hammer.
The doo-doo hammer.
Noakes stomps out. He bangs on the door to the crew quarters. He says, Rolf, present yourself. And you hear scrabbling inside. And by the time Noakes pounds the door open, you see Rolf is kind of hopping up and down, like lacing up his other boot. And he tries to stand at attention. He looks extremely nervous. Let's get an insight check from Red and Adrex.
Adrex and insight.
Be a 19. No, a 20.
20. Yeah, let's make it a 21. Why not?
I think
Adrex?
it's a 9.
9.
It's a 9.
Red, you know that a moment ago he was pretending to sleep. And once again, he gets like a very shocked look on his face. Like he doesn't realize, like he doesn't understand. Like he sees something that he doesn't quite understand. But this time you see he's glancing at Runthiel.
Mm-hmm.
And then looks back at Noakes and at all of you, and he starts to stammer something out about what is this about. By this time, Noakes has reached forward and grabbed by the scruff of his collar, and is beginning to drag him up to the top deck. He begins yelling out, so that all of God and creation can hear him, about, we have a man, a disloyal crewman, stands accused of arson aboard the Deceit. And just the looks of hatred you get from other men, other sailing men aboard this vessel as you move. By the time you get to the top deck, the captain's door has opened. He and Calcine are already waiting outside. Raazu and Wendy, are you going up to the top deck or staying down below?
Yeah, I'm going up now.
Yeah, I'm going up there.
Okay. And the men begin to assemble around. Noakes calls out to the captain that this man, who they signed into the manifest back at the Kovnos, who was served with them these past, it's actually not been that long, maybe 2 weeks or so, stands accused of arson. Then he tells Red to bring him to the scene, to show him the damage that was done.
Yeah, I'll bring him.
You definitely see a look of recognition as Noakes drags this man back into your quarters and into the room. Noakes calls out the type of damage that could be done to a ship if a fire is left unchecked. Of course, Rolf stammers out that he knows absolutely nothing about it. The captain arrives and asks Noakes what's going on. Noakes explains that this man stands accused of arson, shows the back of the quarterdeck here, the damage that was caused. He says, Red, Adrex, and Runthael, bear witness against this man. This is very fortunate that this fire was caught before it spread too far. He asks who doused it.
Red raises his hand. Most of the credit goes to Windy, though, for preparing that bucket of sand.
And Noakes nods. He says, I've seen the presentation. It's extremely comprehensive.
We're gonna give it to HR for the next sail around.
What is
Do you guys ever get the feeling that none of us take this game seriously?
I think we take this game as seriously as its creator.
Yeah, Rolf stammers out a kind of, like, he didn't do it, he has no idea what anybody is talking about. Noakes begins dragging him back on the top deck. Calls out.
Hey, Brick, let me ask you something real quick.
Yeah.
Yuan-ti brand slaves, right?
They do.
Is there a specific place on the body that I would expect to find said brand?
That's an excellent question. I'll leave that answer... I'll let you decide that.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's always, usually, unless they're like, within polite Yuan-ti society, it'll always be on the back of the left shoulder.
Okay. I mean, he's wearing
Ned,
his shirt.
Before you do that, just let me take a quick look here, and I'm just gonna, if Ned doesn't stop me, just pull up his shirt and see if he actually has a slave brand.
Yeah, and he does, in fact. At one point,
Okay.
this man was a Yuan-ti slave.
Well, that part of the story checks out, which is so far the only thing I think he said truthfully.
Noakes begins asking the assembled men, the assembled crew, if anybody will bear witness to Rolf's story, if anybody will stand in his defense. And unsurprisingly, nobody does. He's only been aboard the vessel for a couple of weeks. Nobody knows him super well. He wasn't disliked amongst the crew or anything. He just hasn't yet made strong bonds with anyone.
And this is a weird question. Has anyone noticed has anyone seen Rolf walking around in the dark without a light? Which, I remind you, because most of us aren't familiar with this, humans don't usually do.
Nobody's actually seen Rolf out and about at night, typically, anyway. Last night he was, because he was up on the top deck drinking Windy's rum and
That would have been lit. Okay.
eating grilled mermaid, but no, nobody's seen anything particularly out of sorts with the man, but nobody stands in his
Red
defense.
will make
either.
a show of pulling out the journal he's been keeping his notes for the investigation and writing that down.
Okay.
I love investigation journal. When we need to check our quest log, you'll have us all down.
You got our back.
And as there's no one to stand in the man's defense, and one officer in good standing and two of the captain's personal passengers in his employ bear witness against him, where's Raazu at this point?
Raazu's standing back just watching at the moment. She's kind of keeping an eye out on the crowd and seeing if anybody else is acting shifty.
Noakes calls out, Raazu, ready a rope. And they set to work to hang Rolf.
Is the captain on deck?
At this point, the captain is gone. He's standing amid deck, watching the scene. He's not going to step in. This is... I mean, the man committed a grievous crime against the ship. He was caught in the act.
Oh, no. I'm just going to go work my way over to the captain and say, Captain, this man seems to have some sort of access to magic, or conspirators who do. And while I don't think it's unjust to kill him, it might not be in our best interest to do so before we learn more.
He's kind of watching the scene dispassionately.
Mm-hmm.
Calcine, who's standing next to him, seems... I'm sorry, Calcine is watching very dispassionately. Captain Ice seems very lost in thought. To the point where he said, I'm sorry, you were saying?
This man seems to have magic to close some doors. Is he on... And I didn't see him on the manifest, and I kind of think that we might need to get more information about him before we summarily kill him.
He nods. What's Raazu doing after being asked to fetch a rope?
Raazu's not rushing to she's not gleefully skipping to this man's death, but she's will.
Getting that rope.
Yeah, she's getting that rope.
They're gonna hang him by the bung.
That is an accurate use of that word, as long as they're hanging him in a manner that would not normally be. Yeah, like a macaque.
The captain calls out, Mr. Noakes. Would it be not more fitting that we hang the man by daylight? Noakes seems kind of perplexed at the recommendation. And he looks down at the deck and he says, Raazu, fetch manacles. Rolf is to be confined until sunup.
Okay.
Wendy will head over to Red and the captain and be like, okay, Red, what did you find out from him?
From whom?
From the guy that's getting hanged.
I mean, I haven't gotten anything yet. Which is why I think we don't need to hang him just yet.
And Wendy tilts her head and then say, then why did you get Noakes?
I didn't get nukes. Ronthiel got nukes.
And Wendy just looks very disappointed.
At this, Captain Eyes leans in and whispers so as not to be overheard. He says, let us not forget, Rolf was not aboard the vessel when I was warned of a traitor. So whatever you could find will be most helpful. He slaps Red on the back. He and Calcine
No,
head back.
I suspect him more of conspiracy than anything else.
Can you use your brain magic?
He and Calcine take their leave of you and head back towards the captain's quarters. Raazu shows up and clasps Rolf in irons.
And I'll accompany Raazu and whisper, Raazu, don't put any light into the brig when we do this. I have a suspicion.
Raazu nods.
Raazu's like, wait a minute, humans don't eat light. You're taking him down to the brig?
Yeah.
Someone back of the crew. I've seen the bird woman walking around. She don't even have eyes. What's the deal with that?
And Rolf, I mean, he continues to complain about his innocence as you're dragging him down, all the way until the key turns in the lock and he's in the brig.
And is everybody else down here outside the brig?
Adrex would be, yeah.
Red. Now what?
Alright, so first of all, remember Bronzebeard?
No.
The bard in the Underdark?
Yes.
Remember how we
Dragon's
probably...
Heart?
Oh, Dragonheart. Why do they call him Bronze? Oh, because I don't know. Yeah, Dragon's Heart. Remember how he probably wasn't actually human because he
Okay.
could see in the dark?
I have to step
And we
in.
never really got to the bottom of that.
It was Bronzel Griffin Hearts.
Bronzel bronze body. Got
You
it.
guys.
Dragon Bronzebeard, yeah.
Right. I'm just
They
thinking
make
Bronzebeard.
pants.
My first thought is he making up like a mythical pirate to tell like a pirate story?
I think what he wrote down is Bronzel obvious dragon, and like he just couldn't work backwards from that.
Okay.
Bronzel Dragon, make dragon face.
Obvious
Right.
dragon. Wait, you actually think Bronzel's a dragon?
I don't know what he is, but I'm
He's
wondering if
something.
this is another one of them, because
I'm just saying,
trying
if
to be
I was a
human.
bronze dragon and wanted to pass myself off as human, and was also a bit of an asshole.
I'll tell you
Which
what.
which would be correct if you were a bronze dragon? I know it's copper dragons that bury people up to their neck in sand so they can't leave during their stories.
I'll let somebody make a history check. At disadvantage, but this is a group check, so somebody can assist with this. Because there is some information that you guys might have here that I didn't think about until just this moment, when all this dragon beard...
I'm not trained in history,
That
so I don't
sounds
think I
like
can
Destil.
assist.
does
I think I
anyone
have a
actually
plus
have a-
2 from intelligence, and that's it. I think Birdie is our history person.
I still think that's more than any of us, though.
Okay, and it's
I'll help
no
anyway.
disadvantage.
Yeah,
That's 19.
19.
Well, but the advantage from group check, right? So,
Right.
yeah.
Uh,
So 19.
There is somebody aboard this ship that does remind you a little bit of Bronzel as far as like, racial features go. And that is Calcine.
Oh, was she human?
She could pass as a human, but being on the ship as long as you have and being in her
Yeah, I never
presence,
thought of her as a human.
she definitely
Which
has
is
human features, but being around her for as long as you have, she doesn't carry herself like a human. She doesn't converse like a human.
Like,
So-
I
And that's
I
what...
never asked for her. Also, so the reason I didn't think she was a human brick is before we boarded that other ship, I asked if there were any humans, and you said no.
Oh.
I thought you said Calcine was an elf.
I thought she was like kind of like a fae almost.
'Cause I had-
She
thought
does
was,
have
like,
Fey
kind
features, like Sylvan features.
of-
And
like I thought she was like from the Feywild, like kind of that kind of wild elf.
bringing Bronzel up in this context, asking, you guys remember Bronzel? You get that same feeling from him. You thought he was a human at first too, but he confided that he was something else. And looking back at some of Bronzel's actions and mannerisms, you see a connection somehow between the two of them.
Oh, I also missed the last session of that adventure, so Franzel actually told us he wasn't human. I didn't know that.
No, he never really volunteered any kind of information
Okay.
regarding that.
We just knew.
Yeah, no, I mean, by the end, we all knew. That's why I'm bringing it up. Okay, I mean,
What
that's just my
Bronzel did
first suspicion.
is he created a fire in his hand and was able to hold it without getting burned.
Yeah, and he could speak languages humans should know, and he could see in the dark.
And
Yep.
he also had lived an incredibly long time. He had lived an entire lifetime before being taken to the Underdark. So a lot of things didn't add up about him being human. But you're pretty
think-
confident that he and Calcine are the same kind of thing, whatever they
Do you
are.
think he could be one of those things that that captain told us about, the Hellboys?
The what, boys?
Hellboys?
I can't remember his exact phrase.
Oh, the
Infernals?
Infernals, yeah.
Well,
I've
at any rate,
never-
I mean, the first thing I'd like to see is if this guy can see in the because that's obviously a sign you're not really human. That's a mistake I haven't made when I've tried to disguise myself as a human.
I thought Calcine was an elf. I had Adrex hit on her.
She does have very Sylvan features.
Okay.
Ajax isn't that judgy.
And yeah, other than that, I mean, we could try going into his brain. We could probably maybe just, I don't know. Do you want to try good cop, bad cop, Raziel?
Wait, which of you two is good cop?
Raazu?
Well, he seems to have beef with you, so maybe you're not the best choice for good cop.
Right, but it's not like I could hold a grudge against him. I don't get angry.
It's more like angry cop, neutral cop.
Oh, but he probably doesn't like. I mean, he obviously doesn't like Yuan-ti and that's entirely fair. I don't like Yuan-ti either.
You guys are having this
opens his mouth to
conversation
ask
right
a
outside
question.
of the door?
Yeah.
Not
Okay.
too loudly,
I mean,
I would hope.
the brig's not soundproof, though.
Yeah.
Do you want to just go in and ask him?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go find out what his deal is.
hmm
When you open up the brig and step inside, I mean, the man is... You still have... How did you manacle him? Did you undo his irons when you brought him down here? Or is he still clapped up?
He's still bound.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go in first without anybody else. I'm not gonna light any lights, and I'm just gonna pull out a dagger and passing it between my hands idly,
Mhm.
and walk over and start talking to him and see if his eyes follow it.
Okay. Do you put out the lantern that's back in this room here? Because that would illuminate part of this room.
Yep.
And no, he doesn't. He can't see anything when it's this
Okay.
dark. He's not faking it. He very clearly, he's terrified, and he asks, "Who's that? Is that Raazu?"
Afraid not.
You can't let them hang me.
That depends on what you tell us. So why were you not really all that surprised when a lantern got shattered, and almost burned the ship, and suffocated me?
He said that he was paid. He was told he would be given gold if he threw a lantern through the porthole and started
That's a
fire.
good shot. Where were you?
He said he's works up in the riggings and stuff. But he just climbed all over this deck like a spider. It wouldn't have been difficult at all for him to just... I mean, you climbed up out of the window.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not. Believe me, I don't actually think that was a very impressive
I
act.
think he's a top man, Rickard.
And
Is he Topman? I mean, he's not Chinese, so...
Oh,
and how did you get the door closed?
He... What do you mean?
I mean, you're the one that opened it. You know, the door wasn't actually, barred or anything.
Because I was told it would be locked. And he's not
By
even
who?
looking you in the eyes because
Because,
he's blind in here.
There could be an execution in the morning, but I don't think this ship is pretty up in the air about who gets thrown over and who just gets a couple of lashes. Is that right? Wait, hold on. I have to consult with someone. Hey, Raazu.
What?
Is it lashes for just being a conspirator to burn down the ship? As opposed to hanging?
I don't
this
think
is
Noakes
stupid.
would
Wendy
just-
opens up the door. We're not having this conversation through a door.
Raazu will walk in and answer the question like, no, I think Noakes would just as soon kill you in some other
I'll
some other
relight the lantern for Adrex.
whimsical manner.
I was gonna say, Adrex stays outside and says it's dark in there.
He'd probably kill you in some other whimsical manner.
Well, Adrex, I mean, if you're down here and Red doused the lantern in this room, you're just standing there in the dark anyway.
Sit next to Wendy.
He says
I'll
that...
just kind of give Raazu a look like, did you really just need to say that? I'm working with amateurs.
He says if I tell you who paid me, or who is going to pay me, you can assure that I won't be hanged.
Why don't you start at the beginning? Because the more we know, the better our chances of hanging the correct person. And according to you, that's not you, so
Said it was...
that'd probably work out for you.
It was the carpenter. She offered me gold. She told me the door would be locked, that the only person who would be hurt is... And his head kind of very sheepishly falls. He says, begging your pardon, the only person who would be hurt is the Yuan-ti.
Was that twice?
And he shakes his head. He says, I don't know what you mean.
The crew quarters, were you involved with that one as well?
He shakes his head again. He says, I'm not aware there's a porthole in the crew quarters. I don't mean to sound smart, sir. Just trying to avoid being hanged.
So you're saying that this was Runthale? Runthale bribed you? She doesn't talk to anybody.
He says she didn't say much. She offered me gold if I threw the lantern through the porthole.
Raazu looks very dubious at this.
Yeah, can I make an insight to see if he thinks what he's saying is true?
He definitely thinks what he's saying is true. He believes what he's saying. You also can tell that he's very scared at the moment. Like, working through these, like, even if he avoids getting hanged, he'll probably still have to deal with the fucking hammer.
Right.
but he can only avoid one execution at a time. But no, the fear of death is in this man. He very narrowly, if not for the captain's interjection, he'd be swinging right now.
So
When
I
did she
hadn't-
ask you?
What was the question?
When did she ask you? When did this happen?
He says that they spoke very briefly during the festivities last night. And then he kind of sheepishly lifts his head in Wendy's direction. He says, "By the way, thank you, ma'am."
Yeah, I mean, you're welcome. And I kind of look around at the room. You hear that? He's crew still at the moment.
So, Scamper's definitely had something in his head about Runthiel too, but he was too afraid to blackmail her with it.
Do you think we should find out what Scampers knows?
I mean, I don't know that Scampers knows what Scampers knows on the best of days these days.
Scampers is consistently 3 sheets to the wind on every single day.
I mean, the thing is, I got a lot of other good information out of his head. That one piece, I don't have any reason to doubt it. But I couldn't get anything clear.
And
So
Rolf
honestly,
says
like at this point, most of the investigation is pointing towards Runthiel, which is a shame because I like her.
Rolf blurts out that he doesn't know anything about Scampers. And you can tell he says the word Scampers with some difficulty, like he doesn't want to act disrespectful towards any officers at this moment in time. But you guys are using the word, so it must be okay for him to use it, kind of situation. And then he tells you, "Please, you have to tell the captain what I've told you. I'll stay locked here. I'll take my porridge or whatever, and then when we next pull to port, I'll be gone from the ship, and we'll never trouble you again."
I don't know if the captain's gonna allow that. But we got
I mean, I'm not really all that concerned about it. I think we have bigger fish to fry.
Yeah.
Do you fry fish, Wendy? Is that right?
You can.
Well,
They any good like that?
Yeah.
I don't. I think that Nopes is going to be out for blood. To be perfectly honest, he doesn't seem the type to let something like this slide. Arson's a very serious charge.
Is there anything else that you think we could use in your defense?
And he looks very defeated at this point because he can't really debate what Raazu just said. This is an extremely serious charge. He says that he's at your mercy. He's told you everything he knows.
And she specifically suggested the fire, not just the find a way to kill the Yuan-ti.
And he tells you that she offered him gold to throw a lantern through the porthole. He was told that the door would be locked and that the only person who would get hurt is the Yuan-ti. He was assured that was the case. He says that he would never have set a fire if not for that assurance, and the ship carpenter, who better would know.
And where did you have the conversation with her?
This was during last night's festivities up on the quarterdeck, so actually just above the room.
And Wendy will look at the others and just say,
Can I insight to see if I think this guy's pulling a fast one on us?
He's definitely not. He's giving it to
Okay.
you as straight as he possibly can.
Well, yeah, I
What
mean,
did she
if he's
offer
telling
you?
us the truth, I mean, so here's the thing, this guy was so, I mean, we all saw how, the two of us saw how Runthiel acted as soon as she found out about it. She also seemed to know an awful lot about what was going on. Did you just forget to bring the tools back?
He says that, given the circumstances, he was just trying to get out of that room as fast as possible. That he didn't even realize he still had them until he got back to his quarters, and by that time, Wendy was outside guarding the room.
so wait, because we saw the list, right, of the magic that everyone has?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He doesn't have any. He's just a crewman.
Right, but Runthiel's was mending?
Mending, yes.
And Wendy will say that doesn't check out. How would she close the door with that?
I mean, she might have other magic. We
Does
certainly
she not? Does she not
Yeah.
have?
I mean, her rune is similar, I think.
And he blurts out that he doesn't know anything about magic. He certainly doesn't have any.
I mean, look, there isn't any mark on Birdie that says that he could call tentacle another dimension, and yet here we are.
And he definitely doesn't want you to do that to him.
Sure, I'm just saying
She could have two.
she could have two, or someone else could have two.
Yeah.
Because just because he thinks he talked to Runthiel doesn't mean he talked to Runthiel.
So you think someone disguised themselves as Ruth?
I'm saying I don't know. But I feel like we should get more information before we accuse Runthiel.
I mean, the problem is she's opaque. I could try going in her mind, but I think it'd be a little bit easier than getting... Might be a little bit harder than getting inside campers. And she would know what I was doing if I failed.
And that would tip our hand.
Mm.
Do we have some sort of timetable on this betrayal?
He's to be hanged in the morning.
No, not that.
Oh. I mean, that's the only timetable you're really working under right now. If you want to save Rolf's life, he's going to be hanged in the morning. Unless you can
I mean,
do something about
here's
it.
the thing.
I don't think that trick that I pulled with Nem is gonna fly for arson.
And
What were
Rolf,
you going to say, Adrex?
was Adrex going to say anything?
I'm thinking.
And Rolf clarifies, he says, you'll tell the captain what I've told you, you'll advocate on my behalf?
I mean, I don't think it's gonna help you, dude. You can say what you've told us to the captain. He's not gonna believe you, and you still admitted to throwing the lantern into the porthole window.
How about this? How about... Because we've been in here talking to you for a while, right? Which means God knows on this ship, half the crew knows we're in here talking to you.
Oh
And the other
yeah,
half are asleep.
and they'll know in the morning.
How
Let's find
about
it.
we see if news... I go talk to Runthiel, ask her if she has any questions for him. Because he's... we're going to question him, but he's saying that he'll only talk to the captain. That way, she thinks he hasn't talked yet, but is going to. And so if she's going to make her move, she'll make it then.
So you think she's going to try and assassinate her? I assume she's just going to use her position of power on the ship to let things play out and assume that we're going to fail to save him. Which seems pretty insightful to me.
And
What I do?
Wendy just shrugs, says, I'm just wondering if we can get some more insight into the situation.
So are we done with Rolf for now?
Yeah, but there's no reason we
Yeah.
can't continue to have this conversation with him comically sitting there.
No, but I kind of have to pee, and it's almost our break time.
Okay.
So I was wondering if we're ending the scene here, if we need to, or if you guys are working something out.
If you want to go pee, we're not going to
Yeah,
stop you.
Yeah, we're still trying to come up with some kind of plan.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
it does seem like it's in our best interest to try and delay this hanging as long as we possibly can.
Is
I
it?
mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't super care if this guy gets hanged because he threw a torch on a ship.
Yeah, no, Red's pretty much on the same, like, it's stricter punishment than he might like, but he doesn't live on a ship, at least not until now. So...
And he doesn't like what he's hearing at the moment, and you hear him start weeping softly.
That was not out loud, Rickro.
No, that was totally out loud, like, I'm pretty
Yeah, I
sure
think
Red
that
is
was
having
out
this
loud.
conversation with Adrex.
Yeah, you guys just...
This is a nice, quiet place that nobody else
Alright,
can...
my part was not out loud because it's not something Wendy would say.
That's true. That's true.
It's
That is something
absolutely
Red would say,
Red
however.
Yeah.
And Adrix definitely said his part out loud of it's in our best interest to delay this as long as we can.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know how we're going to get a delay longer than the first light, and I don't really understand, Adrix, why you think we'll get anything more out of having him alive.
Don't give him any more
Like,
torches.
Look, what's the best that can happen? We actually figure out that it is Raphael who's the traitor, and then we kill both of them, because it's not like that's going to absolve him of what he's done.
I'm just.
I mean, if you have a good reason, I'm all for it. I don't see either the reason or the opportunity.
I
Surprised they
mean,
didn't throw him over, though. Is that just for thieves? Looking at
if
Raazu.
anything, he's an ally we have now. If you think about it, he seems more than eager now to assist. He would be more than eager to assist anything that we could come up with.
And he affirms that he would indeed be in your debt.
I mean, what else? All right, so who do people think we are the cause of all the things that have gone wrong on this ship since we got here?
Mm-hmm.
Since you're just a member of the crew, if you're such a big ally of ours.
You're asking that of Rolf?
Yep.
He says that he wasn't aboard the vessel when it happened, but he heard that, and he motions towards the direction he's hearing Raazu's voice. That she crawled back out of the sea after being killed. That she's some manner of the undead. Some of the men believe she drinks blood.
No, not yet anyway. She says very dryly.
Don't start now.
And what about the siren attack? Do they blame us for that?
He said that he was warned before the siren attack. That he was told. And this does strike you as strange because the whole point of the siren attack was that it's kind of a hazing ritual. New men aboard the vessel aren't told because they know that they had a magical backup. So the fact that Rolf was told, being a new crewman, and he was supposed to be the butt of this joke.
Who told you?
I have her name here, actually. And he says, one of the rat women, Kepi.
You can speak to the rat people? I thought they didn't speak common.
And he kind of sheepishly admits that he speaks the rat folk language, that he befriended the women after coming aboard.
And how come they didn't speak up in your defense?
They don't have anything to say, I imagine. They just don't have any evidence one way or the other. They don't have anything to exonerate him.
And he did do it, which doesn't
I mean,
help.
yeah, but the thing is he did do it.
Yeah.
They stood to be damaged just as much as anybody if the ship caught fire and began to sink.
Yeah.
How, like, what would make you so desperate to... Are you just desperate for coin?
And he says, what man isn't desperate for coin?
But you do realize that if that fire had spread as it should have, then all of our lives would be in danger, including yours.
He just
Why?
reiterates that he was assured by the carpenter that the only person who would get hurt is the Yuan-ti.
How much
Hey, Raazu,
gold?
have you ever been sold into slavery before?
Raazu goes a little bit dark at that.
Have you ever been kept indentured servant on a farm where you could buy your way off if you had money?
No.
Yeah, it's not like that's not an unreasonable thing to want.
You guys are walking around with thousands of gold pieces. Why don't y'all check your privilege? How about that?
I said we had enough treasure. I meant it.
Please, we give it to our Dragonborn.
And he eats it. No.
He eats it.
Adrex only keeps the coins that have funny faces on them. So what was our plan?
Right about that.
Yeah.
Do we talk to his rat folk friends?
Well, they would have known about the siren attack anyway, right? The only thing that went wrong was they told them.
Right,
So they were
they're
just
old
friends
hands.
with
They've
them.
been aboard for
Yeah.
a long time.
I thought the harp was supposed to protect the ship from the attacks.
It was, but it was severed.
So
Yeah,
how's
the idea is to fuck with the menfolk. Give everybody a good laugh as they freak out.
Exactly.
But then everyone's fine because there's a harp.
Gotcha.
Called hazing, Adrex.
I don't like it.
Matrix takes a stance.
So do we have a plan, or do you guys want some time to think about it? Because we can go to break and come back and collect our thoughts.
Yeah, I think break's good.
All right.
Yeah.
Break.
Go ahead and
Also,
put
Bork.
Elizagirth on screen here.